Whether it's killing someone or conspiring to kill someone, it's always related to alcohol in the NHL. Here are NHL players who've been charged with serious crimes. Dino Ciccarelli. Dino Ciccarelli was a former professional ice hockey player who played in the National Hockey League for 19 seasons. He was known for his physical play and his ability to score goals, and he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2010. However, in 1987, Ciccarelli's reputation took a hit when he was arrested for indecent exposure. Ciccarelli had been at a shopping mall in Bloomington, Minnesota, and had stepped outside to urinate in the parking lot. Unfortunately for him, a police officer happened to be in the area and saw Ciccarelli in the act. Ciccarelli was charged with indecent exposure, and he eventually pled guilty to the charge. He was sentenced to 1 day in jail and ordered to pay a fine of $1,000. The incident was embarrassing for Ciccarelli, and it tarnished his image in the eyes of many fans and observers. Despite this setback, Ciccarelli continued to play in the NHL for several more years, and he retired in 1999 with 608 career goals and 592 career assists. While the incident may have stained his reputation, Ciccarelli remains one of the greatest goal scorers in NHL history, and his induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame is a testament to his impressive career. Ramage. Former Toronto Maple Leafs captain Rob Ramage was found guilty of being responsible for causing the death of his friend in a horrific car crash. Ramage was guilty of 5 charges, including impaired and dangerous driving, in the death of former Chicago Blackhawks defenseman Keith Magnuson. Magnuson died instantly from head and chest injuries when a rental car Ramage was driving crashed head-on into a Nissan Pathfinder on December 15, 2003. Ramage was also found guilty of impaired and dangerous driving and causing injuries to Michelle Pacheco, the driver of the Pathfinder. Ramage was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but was granted parole in May 2011. Danton. Mike Danton was a former professional ice hockey player who played in the National Hockey League for the New Jersey Devils and St. Louis Blues. In 2004, he was arrested and ultimately sentenced to 7.5 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. The bizarre case involved Danton's relationship with his former junior hockey coach, David Frost. Danton became estranged from Frost and reportedly believed that Frost was planning to have him killed. In a twisted turn of events, Danton then conspired to have Frost murdered by hiring a hitman. However, Danton's plan was foiled when the hitman turned out to be an undercover police officer. Danton was arrested and ultimately pled guilty to the charges against him. He was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, while the hitman who had posed as a would-be killer was sentenced to 10 years. Danton served his sentence in a federal prison in the United States and was released in 2009. He has since spoken out about the incident, saying that he was suffering from a mental illness at the time and that he regrets his actions. Danton has also become an advocate for mental health awareness, sharing his story to help others who may be struggling with similar issues. We recommend that you subscribe to our channel to not regret missing any of our future content. Lysiak. Tom Lysiak was a former professional ice hockey player for the Atlanta Flames and the Chicago Blackhawks, who was sentenced to 6 months in prison in 1983 after tripping a linesman during a game. The incident occurred during a game between the Blackhawks and the Hartford Whalers in October of 1983. Lysiak was upset with a call made by linesman Ron Foyt, and he deliberately tripped him with his stick. Lysiak was kicked out from the game, and he was later suspended for 20 games by the NHL. However, Lysiak's punishment didn't end there. He was also charged with assault for his actions against Foyt, and he was eventually convicted and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Lysiak served his time in a minimum security prison, and he was released after 4 months for good behavior. The incident was a black mark on Lysiak's career and his reputation, but he continued to play in the NHL for a few more years before retiring in 1986. After his retirement, Lysiak became involved in coaching and worked with several junior hockey teams. He passed away in 2016 at the age of 63. Probert. Rob Probert was a former professional ice hockey player who played in the NHL for the Detroit Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks. He was known for his physical play and his ability to fight, and he was considered one of the toughest players in the league during his career. However, Probert struggled with substance abuse throughout his career, and his addiction eventually led to legal trouble. In 1989, Probert was arrested for cocaine possession at the Detroit-Windsor border crossing. He was convicted of smuggling drugs and was sentenced to 3 months in jail, followed by a year of probation. Probert's legal troubles didn't end there. In 1994, he was charged with drunk driving after crashing his car into a tree in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. He was convicted and sentenced to 90 days in jail, but he was released after serving 45 days for good behavior. Despite his struggles with addiction and legal troubles, Probert was beloved by fans for his toughness and his on-ice skills. He retired from the NHL in 2002 and passed away in 2010 at the age of 45 from heart failure. While Probert's legal troubles were a dark chapter in his life, he remains a legendary figure in the history of the NHL. Mike Ribeiro. In 2017, the former Montreal Canadiens player Ribeiro was arrested and charged with assault on a family member, and he ultimately pled guilty to the charge. The incident occurred in 2016 when Ribeiro's wife called the police to report that he had physically assaulted her. Ribeiro was arrested and charged with assault, and he was later ordered to undergo domestic violence counseling. In 2017, Ribeiro pled guilty to the charge and was sentenced to probation. The incident marked the end of Ribeiro's NHL career, as he was not signed by any team after the incident. Ribeiro had a history of off-ice issues, including substance abuse problems, and his legal troubles only added to his difficulties. Brian Spencer. Brian Spencer was a former professional ice hockey player who played in the NHL for several teams, including the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Islanders. In 1988, Spencer was shot and killed, and his murder is still unsolved to this day. However, before his death, Spencer had a history of legal troubles that included jail time. Spencer's first run-in with the law occurred in 1973 when he was charged with assault after an altercation with a police officer. He was sentenced to a year in jail but was released after serving 6 months. In 1982, Spencer was arrested again and charged with assault and battery after a bar fight. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison but was released after serving 10 months. Spencer's legal troubles were attributed to his struggles with addiction and his unpredictable behavior. His life was further complicated by the tragic death of his father, who was murdered in 1970, and the murder of his brother in 1977. Spencer's own murder in 1988 was a shocking and tragic end to a life that was marked by both on-ice success and off-ice struggles. Craig MacTavish. Craig MacTavish is a retired professional ice hockey player and coach who played with the Boston Bruins, Edmonton Oilers, and New York Rangers in the NHL. MacTavish was involved in a sad car accident in 1984 that killed a young woman, and he was eventually sentenced to 1 year in prison. The accident occurred in June 1984 when MacTavish was driving under the influence of alcohol and collided with a car driven by 26-year-old Kim Radley. Radley was killed in the incident, and MacTavish was charged with vehicular homicide. He pled guilty to the charge and was sentenced to 1 year in jail, followed by 18 months of probation. MacTavish's time in jail was a difficult and transformative experience for him. He later spoke about how the experience forced him to confront his problems with addiction and changed his perspective on life. After his release, MacTavish resumed his hockey career and went on to win 3 Stanley Cup championships as a player with the Edmonton Oilers. He also went on to have a successful coaching career in the NHL. While MacTavish's time in jail was a dark chapter in his life, he has used the experience to become an advocate for sobriety and responsible behavior. For a more cheerful video, we recommend clicking the link on the screen to know about the craziest goalies in NHL.